DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. College football, the countdown is on. We had Frank Dolce on earlier this morning. He was talking about the dog days of camp. The first week's great. Everyone's getting ramped up. The last week's great because the game's there and you're doing game prep. It's not camp anymore. But in between, where we are now, PK, in between, not so glorious.
Yeah, it's actually laborious at this point.
Right? But this too shall pass. A few more days, and the college football will get going.
Yeah.
We'll get to this coming up a little later, PK, but we're getting feedback on the stadium segment we did. We were talking about UVU reorienting it, and people started sending in photos. That was awesome. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are joined now by Jay Drew, BYU beat writer for the Deseret News. Jay, good morning. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Nice to be on today.
The top 25 poll is out. BYU and Utah, the first two teams out. BYU, Utah, Baylor, the first three teams out in the media top 25. The Cougars were in at number 23 in the coaches poll. Given the offseason developments at quarterback and suddenly the lack of experience at that position, do you think that's about right for where they ought to be? Do you find that a little surprising they're that high? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's about right, particularly for BYU. I think, coming off of that bowl win, if everything had kind of remained status quo, they'd probably be around 20, maybe even top 15, 15 to 20 range. But, yeah, I think the whole Jake Retzlaff news with the quarterback situation and the uncertainty and how far it's gone into preseason training camp now without a clear-cut starter having emerged, I think that's probably as good as most BYU fans could have hoped for, is receiving votes but not quite in the rankings. It gives them a little fuel, the players and the coaches, a little more fuel for the fire by basically saying they're unranked. Yet there's still a little bit of confidence in them around the nation, and I think a lot of that is based on that they showed well in the bowl game last year in front of a lot of eyeballs, and so I think a lot of people still remember that as well. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good spot for them. They're obviously they win a couple games, they'll move into the rankings, and then away they go if they keep winning.
You're an excellent reporter, and you find ways to find out information, and we expect to hear what we hear from the coaches until they make an announcement that they're going to go this way or that way. But sort of stuff that hasn't been coming out of their mouths through you've been able to glean, where do you think this thing stands as far as the race for the starter?
Yeah, I honestly believe that that the coaches are leaning towards, or I shouldn't say leaning towards, but they really want Bear Bachmeier to maybe do something to show that he's ready for this. He's got the highest ceiling. I think the coaches know that. He's winning over quite a few of his teammates. It helps to have his brother on the receiving corps. And so I'm not saying that that's who they're going to go with. He's not the safe choice. If they're going to go with the safe choice, I think it's Hillstead. I think if you're Aaron Roderick and you want to make the safe choice, you go with the guy that's played the most at the highest level, and that would be of the three, and that would be Hillstead. So, but I think it reminds me a little bit of when Zach Wilson was a freshman, how there was a lot of sentiment among the coaching staff. They wanted him in there as soon as possible. But what do you do with Tanner Mangum? He was a senior and kind of a returning starter and all that. And so they let it play out the first half of the season, and then they pulled the trigger on Zach Wilson. I think they might have learned a little bit from that, and if they did, that would pretend to say that Bear Bachmeier has a better chance, because I think they don't want to repeat what happened in 2019 or 2018, I think it was, and start right off with the guy that can develop and and maybe be kind of that guy that is harder to prepare for,
Yep.
and gives you a chance down the road to develop him a year and then be really, really good maybe next year.
That's what I've been saying all along, but yeah.
That is exactly what he's been saying all along, and I think the one thing that has them maybe pumping the brakes a little bit at this point, and it doesn't really matter at this point because the game is still, at the end of the month, is that the schedule looks, on paper, there could be surprises, but on paper it looks pretty soft at the start. Portland State, Stanford, East Carolina, Stanford with an interim coach. Colorado, West Virginia, Arizona is not the toughest portion of the Big 12 schedule. So I think they look at that and think we should be 5-1 or 6-0 at that point. If they're 3-3 or 4-2, it's not so good the way the back half of the schedule stacks up. So is Bear Bachmeier good enough to get them to 5-1?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think he is. I think the guys around him. I think it's a little concerning where both Kalani and Aaron Roderick said after the scrimmage that the offense had a lot of penalties, had a lot of procedural issues, things of that nature. We've seen a bad snap or two in the shotgun formation in the media viewing portions of camp. So that's a little concerning that, and I don't know who the quarterback was in on those particular plays or when the penalties happened. But, yeah, the one thing I'll say maybe as a cautionary tale for BYU fans is East Carolina is a really good program. I mean, they're not a Power 4 team, but they get a lot of great athletes. They've won the last two times BYU and East Carolina have played, including a game in 2017 out in Greenville where Gardner Minshew came in and led. And, of course, BYU was horrible in 2017, so there's a good reason for that. But that's a tough trip. That's a long across-the-country trip for BYU. So I wouldn't throw that in the gimme range by any stretch, but especially, on the road and that far away. But yeah, you would think this schedule is kind of almost tailor-made for breaking in a new quarterback for BYU, and maybe they can use that to their advantage.
I'm sure you caught it, but Jay Hill. Right, I'm saying, wow, not Jay Drew. No, Jay Hill.
Two J's.
Yeah, 2J. He was an old coach there at BYU, too.
Right.
Keep them coming. Free association, PK.
I think his kid's playing for Bronco up in Utah State. Started at BYU. I think he transferred up there, so cool. There might be another 2J coming along.
But I was talking about Jay Hill, and the one thing that caught my ear on his Zoom on Saturday was he's fired up about the pass rush. And, that's been a little bit of a weakness. It's gotten better, but they still want it better than it is or has been. Level of confidence that this pass rush, particularly from the outside on the edges, can be something that can make a little bit of a difference for the defense.
Yeah, he's mentioned that several times. Even before camp started, Kalani was pumping up this Tassili Akana, the transfer from Texas,
sure,
that played high school ball locally here. So yeah, that was a little bold for Jay Hill. Usually not that, willing to kind of dish out praise or whatever. So, you also have to look at it as what's wrong with, BYU's offensive tackles. Why are they in the scrimmage giving up sacks and all that? And so it's kind of a double-edged sword. But everything I've heard from coming out of camp is they're really excited about these rush ends that they have. Even at that golf event at Cedar Hills back in June, Kelly Papinga was pretty high on the rush, and he said you're going to see a lot better, just a lot better pass rush this year. So that stands to reason, and I think it's good. And obviously last year they got quite a few takeaways, and they led the nation in interceptions, but they were way, way down the list in sacks, almost one of the lowest in the country. So if they're going to turn it into Sack Lake Provo, they got a long way to go, but looks like they're finally heading in the right direction. I just threw that in there to make Utah fans mad, by the way.
Okay.
You pot stirrer, Jay.
I know they've got the copyright on Sac Lake City, but so anyway.
As you listen to A-Rod talk about how good the run game is, do you think the run game is really good, or do you think he was trying to say something positive because there have been a lot of mistakes and he can't say anything really positive about the passing game when he hasn't named a starting quarterback?
Yeah, he's been they absolutely love L.J. Martin, and as long as he can stay healthy, he's good. He's a really good running back, but that's the caveat with him is he hasn't been able to stay healthy his first two seasons for the whole season. I think the loss of the redshirt freshman Pokai Honga could hurt him. They keep kind of downplaying that and saying, "Oh, we got other guys." Obviously Sione Moa and Enoch Nalahini and a few others. But even back in December, January, in the portal times, I would say that they've had success pulling in a kind of a running back, experienced running back out of the transfer portal, like Tyson. Forgot his last name. Yeah, and then Aiden Robbins had showed some flashes, wasn't maybe as good as they thought it would be, and Chris Brooks was good. So I was kind of surprised they didn't go after one, but I think as long as they stay healthy, they're okay there. And obviously they say these offensive linemen are a little bit of better pass blockers, not pass blockers, run blockers than what they had last year with the guys that moved on, hoping for spots in the NFL. But I don't know. I think the jury's out. BYU always seems to struggle with running back injuries. It's in 1 year they were moving safeties and linebackers over to play running back, and it worked out with Tyler Algier, but that was probably a rare case where it did work out. But yeah, I guess we'll have to take Roderick's word for it right now, and then kind of see how it progresses. But number one thing is they got to keep those guys healthy because it's not really a deep room at the present time.
Yeah, injuries can certainly curtail a team. We've seen it here locally several times, and hopefully for them they do have that good health. Another thing that scares me a little bit for BYU is winning a bunch of close games, and then also how many non-offensive touchdowns did they have last year, man? Because that was really good, and it's hard to count on that stuff. So that's a couple of things that worry me or concern me. Yeah,
absolutely. And special teams, Keelan Marion had the 2 kickoff returns. Parker Kingston had 2 punt returns for touchdowns. Isaiah Glasker had a pick 6. And, and you can go on and on. Yeah, you can't count on those things. You can scheme, you can scheme for them, and you can come up with, all these different formations or whatever. But, I mean, that Parker Kingston punt return was a total fluke if you look at it. And, if they don't get the kickoff return against Utah from Keelan Marion, they probably don't win that game.
Right.
So you're right. That's, kind of hidden in all those numbers last year was the fact that special teams was phenomenal, and Kelly Papinga and his crew, ought to be commended for that because special teams probably won them 3 games, maybe even 4. So you're right, and that's something that you just can't count on year to year. So there's nothing like a guy that can come in and move the chains and throw in a couple chunk plays, explosive plays. That's the real formula for winning that you can count on year after year. And obviously that's Aaron Roderick's big challenge this year is to keep that going.
Obviously, as the team gets better and deeper, it's harder for someone to come in and make an impact, and yet people still often do. In your observations, as limited as they are allowed at this point, and in your conversations with people, have you been able to identify a potential breakout player here?
Well, this Carson Ryan, I don't know if you could call him that because he's been at UCLA and Utah, but he looks really, really good. I mean, just the way he runs, the way he catches the ball, the way he stays on his feet after he catches it for yards after catch. I know he didn't put up big numbers at Utah or UCLA, but I think he's the real deal, and I think he's going to put kind of that position back at BYU. the Isaac Rex was really good, and then he got hurt. He was never the same. And last year it was by committee. They didn't really have anybody. But this, from everything we've seen, Carson Ryan's really good. And then the other guy I'd throw in is Tiger Bachmeier, the Bears' brother receiver, graduated in 2.5 years from Stanford, so he's incredibly smart. But he just, as you watch him run routes, and he's also a pretty kind of almost a natural leader, even though he's new. So I would say those two guys are probably going to have a pretty good impact on this season.
Jay, your choices were the Utah 6-ounce filet, lasagna, or country fried steak. Which one did you go with?
Oh, I went with the 6-ounce filet. Yeah, obviously you're talking about the. Are we supposed to publicize that? Because I don't know if
rules are not for PK; they're for other people.
Okay.
I mean, you can publicize that it's happening. It's not going to be clandestine. We're not meeting at midnight.
Well, the odd thing is they're doing it right in the middle of the Utah Open Pro-Am week, where Riverside Country Club is so packed with cars that you have to park, like a half a mile away sometimes to get there. So that's going to be interesting to see how the luncheon unfolds with the parking situation.
Yeah,
that's what I'm mainly concerned about.
When KY goes to a place, he's the headliner, buddy boy.
All right. Well, we don't have Tony Romo in the Utah Open.
You don't have either one.
He's been playing it the past few years, and he's not this year. So maybe Kevin can be the headliner.
But will we have Tony Finau in the Black Desert Open?
It looks like the fact that he didn't make the top 50 and didn't move on, in the Tour playoffs, FedEx Cup playoffs. Yeah, I think he didn't play last year. I think it was more of some health issues he had, a bad back and things, or maybe even knee. I think it was a meniscus. But anyway, yeah, I think this kind of is a good sign that he didn't make the top 50 and didn't move on, and that he'll play in the Black Desert. So hopefully he will. Should be a lot of fun.
Well, Jay, we'll leave it right there. We appreciate the time as always, and we appreciate the heads up on having a half-mile walk-in for the meeting with the basketball coach too. So
we'll be able to walk off the dessert then.
Actually, I think if you pull up, they got a little shuttle system. They say go park down there, and they'll have a shuttle pick you up. That's what they were doing yesterday, so maybe that's what they'll do.
Okay, there it is. There's the plan. Excellent. All right. Thanks, Jay. We appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Have a great day.
You too. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. The Slacker headlines are next.
Blue 58!
You patiently waited and waited and waited. And now it's here. It's college football season. As the Cougars, Utes, and Aggies get ready for the upcoming season, nobody will bring you better coverage of the teams you can't live without than the KSL Sports Zone. With daily updates from camps and interviews with all the coaches and players, your home for the best coverage of college football is on air, online, and on the KSL Sports app. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Yeah, baby!
Slacker Radio headlines are brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at trajanwealth.com. Time to catch you up to date on everything you missed at today's show. We just talked Cougar football with Jay Drew. We talked Utah football at 7:30 with Frank Dolce. And PK, I know we have questions, and we're just going to have questions until we see games. And given the strength or potentially the lack of strength of these schedules, UCLA and Stanford are the marquee games. It may come down to we have to see conference games to really have a handle on who these teams are. Certainly that's the way it worked out with the Utes last year, starting 4-0 and then losing 7 in a row. But having said that, as you talk to people, you've been saying stuff for a while, and Jay came on and pretty much said almost verbatim, what you've been saying about the quarterback race. Are you getting clarity, as much clarity as you can have in mid-August?
Well, I'm not ready to say that Bachmeier's the starter. No way. I'm not saying that. But the stuff that Jay said has been amplifying what I believe the desires are. They know that they need to pick the player that can help them win the most games. That's the most important thing, obviously. And so with that in mind, they will make their decision. And I agree with what Jay's saying. If you wanted Hillstead as the safe pick, that's fine too. Obviously, they're also drawing closer to making decisions. At least Kalani will speak today, so we'll get more information, and then they'll go with it. I mean, the thing that does, from a BYU fan perspective, gives me a level of confidence. These guys have been through this before, and once you've been through stuff, you probably have a better idea how to handle it the second time around. We'll hear that from Kevin Young tomorrow. I don't think it's any big secret that he's going to have a little get-together with some media members. I mean, if it's off the record, then the content. But the fact that I don't think that's a big deal. But the point I'm making is that there's no doubt in my mind that Kevin Young's second time around the Big 12, he'll have more knowledge, right? And it stands to reason that he'll be better. Not to say he wasn't good last year, because clearly the results speak for themselves. That's the great thing about it, is that in sports, man, you can come up with whatever variables you want, but that one-loss record speaks the loudest, doesn't it?
It screams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why there's a scoreboard.
Yeah.
That big thing hangs over the end of the stadium.
Well, I think also to put up advertisements.
Well, as it turns out, they found it is handy for that. And to show videos that whip the crowd into a frenzy. I remember, growing up, they didn't have any of that stuff in stadiums.
No.
But I was probably in my 20s the first time that I was at a stadium and I saw a video board used as if it were a television. And I thought, wow, it was an NFL game. And they were complaining about, it's better to sit at home and watch the game. And I was watching it, and it was a Raider game in the LA Coliseum. And it was and they did such a good job of, yelling, get louder or whatever, get loud and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they were just at the very start of putting video replays up. So all of a sudden you could decide on a replay if that was pass interference or not or whatever, and the fans were getting into that, and they could show you the touchdown again if you looked down and missed it, or the person in front of you stood up and blocked your view or whatever. And it was it was pretty enlightening. And now we got light rings in all the stadiums. You score touchdowns and the lights are on and off and flickering. I mean, you can't control the game, but you can control the show around the game. It's like you were talking about with the ballparks earlier this morning, Okay, the stadium will now control the area around the stadium where people are either walking or driving in, or if they're riding light rail or whatever, because the experience starts as you get close to the stadium. So make that good too.
Right. Yeah. So I believe they'll make the right decision. I'm not reporting anything, though. I want to make sure that people know that I'm not saying X, Y, Z.
No, the thing you said is what, and I think this has been said by a lot of people too, and Jay just said it, Bear Bachmeier looks like he's got the most upside, right? And we've been surprised by this stuff before, but I think people can agree on that. It looks like he has the most upside. The question is, how quickly can he get to just the basic level of competence and not messing stuff up? Because looking at the schedule, you just can't start 3-3. Jay's right about East Carolina's like Fresno State. Sometimes they're not very good, but sometimes they're really good.
Right.
And it is a long trip. And they do have back-to-back games with East Carolina and Colorado on the road. That's not ideal. No. Often you end up splitting those. You might sweep them, but often you end up splitting them. So if they're 5-1 or 6-0, and Bachmeier's the quarterback, that's if you knew you could get to that, it's a no-brainer.
Oh gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. But if you're 3-3, do you want to do that? Is that a good idea?
Well,
and this is the thing they got to watch.
But you don't know what you're going to get with the other guys, though.
See, that's
if you get to, so in your scenario that you're painting, if you get to 3-3 and he's over there hadn't taken a snap, is that a waste? Did you waste 6 games of development that could pay off? Even if it doesn't specifically pay off this year, good chance next year. I'm looking at you, Tyler Huntley.
I guess I'd have to see what they looked like, but off the top of my head, I'd say, yeah, that'd be a waste.
Right.
And maybe when it played out, I'd see some stuff in there and say, well, I get why this happened and it's not so bad. But, yeah, on the surface, that would feel like a waste, And you don't want to waste this season, but they're coming off such a big season. Last season felt like a do-or-die thing.
Yeah.
That felt like, hey, you guys, you better get this right, because if you get it wrong,
well,
there could be someone else trying to do it
As
next
you know,
year.
we had someone say the goal here is to be employed at this institution in January.
That is a fact.
And that was August.
That was said. And whether they were right or wrong to worry about it, I guess we could debate that. But the fact is, they were definitely concerned. Worried might be the wrong word, but they're definitely concerned.
I was concerned too. I don't want to see these guys get fired. I don't want to see anybody get fired.
I know.
Except
maybe they
Herm
wouldn't
Edwards.
have. Again, what does it look like? Why did it happen, right? So, Tom Holmoe was calling the shots at that point. And, Tom is certainly a grown-up who can fire people if he thinks it needs to be done. And at the same time, because he coached, he knows there's some nuance there. If it doesn't go well, why doesn't it go well, right? That's a huge question you have to ask. But they were definitely feeling it. 100%.
And they won't feel it this year.
No. Nor should they.
So that'd be interesting. How will that factor in their decision, knowing that they're not coaching for their jobs?
And I think that that gives them ability to look long term, even though I think everything we hear and read across college football is that more and more coaches are thinking, what's the point of thinking long term?
Right. Yeah.
Just like
I think
all
you
the
owe it to the
coordinators
seniors,
move,
man. You
the
don't want to look
quarterbacks
for
move.
next year.
Right, yeah. That too.
I don't think they're going to –
But-
if they pick Bachmeier, it's not, oh, man, we're going to really be good in 26.
Right.
Obviously, they wouldn't say it, but I also think they wouldn't think it either.
Well, all of this is the way, and then maybe they just make it, maybe the play of these three guys makes it clear. I mean, they had more than 100 snaps, so I think all three guys, if they're splitting them evenly, right, everybody's getting, depending on how many more snaps they had, over 100, and depending on how they count the special team snaps, sometimes you count them separate, sometimes they get lumped in there. But everybody should have gotten 30 snaps, and maybe guys got 40. Well, you're getting pretty close to a full game.
Yeah.
I think most coaches want to take 50 snaps in a game probably, or 50 to 60 and really dominate the ball. But at 30 to 40, you got a pretty good sample size here.
I think the most important thing is when a decision is announced, it will be based on who they believe gives them the best chance to win in 25. Yes, if it's whoever it is, because none of these guys have been an established starter in
Right.
at BYU. Hillstead wasn't an established starter. None of the other two weren't established starters at their prior places. So there is a risk involved with everyone. And that's the thing about it. I don't think that they won't give Bachmeier the job because he'll be really good in 26. They'll give him because he won the job in 25.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is who they pick second matters. There's more practice reps for that player. And let's face it, we could sit here and obsess, and the coaches can do all, burn that midnight oil all they want, and a quarterback can get hit in week 1, 2, or 3, and suddenly the backup is the guy after all anyway. So it all matters.
I think Bachmeier is indestructible. How many times do Bears lose? How many times do Bears get hurt? You got to shoot them. No one's going to shoot them.
For people who didn't hear it, the interview with Tiger Bachmeier, you're asking about the bear or the tiger. He got right into it, too.
Well,
he knew right where you were going.
Yes, and think about this. It's just not the bear or the tiger. How about tigers and lions? Who do you like there?
Tigers and lions and bears. Oh, my.
See, I think that I'm a tiger and you're a lion. I saw the other day that they compared the two. They say lions are social animals.
And tigers are loners.
And tigers are solitary animals. They love huge personal space.
Yeah, that's why you go downstairs when your wife's watching TV upstairs and you turn on a game. You need all that personal space, the whole lower floor.
So I think, you're a social animal. I veer the other way. I'm a tiger and you're a lion.
That could be. You might be onto something there.
And I'm totally happy being a bear.
Are you a bear fan?
No. Yeah, I'm a Bear fan, yeah.
Well, then be careful because.
Well, wait a second. How does he spell bear? Then he may have a thing.
Oh, now, hey now.
Okay. It's 9 o'clock.
It's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday.
The regular customers. Oh, man. Well, if you're a Bears fan, Taron Armstead, the former Dolphin, who was given privileges as a former Dolphin to watch Miami's practices, was there when Miami and Chicago had their joint practice. And, man, that was he just got right to the point with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is missing pre-snap reads. He's not reacting quickly enough to stuff happening after the snap. And Miami was having no problems getting in there for what would have been sacks if it wasn't a practice where they blow everything dead. But that was not very complimentary of Caleb, and if I were a Bears fan, I'd be a little worried.
Well, Caleb Williams a little bit was brought on to all this by himself and his handlers. He did have a PR person in his last meeting at the Pac-12, and he would look at her, and it was scripted and all. Yeah. Maybe there's a lesson there. Downplay this and just be a regular dude until you've made it. And just because you've made it at SC and you won the Heisman and all that, that doesn't mean you're going to make it down the line, And maybe low-key it, and maybe we would look at Caleb Williams a little bit different, like, okay, well, he's still just barely past his rookie season and he needs some more time. But I think the aura and the hoopla around him led to the dramatic, well, I better see some immediate progress. And then you got Daniels over there in Washington who's giving you immediate progress. Well, what about wait a second. That guy's doing it. Why isn't our guy doing it? What's going on here?
Why did we draft this guy number one when we could have had that guy number one?
I still think that's too premature, but yeah, and you got to show progress, man. At least give me progress. But what this kid said, what's his Armstead?
Taron Armstead.
That's I appreciate him speaking the truth as he sees it, but it's not particularly positive.
It was not positive, and go ahead and play it. He's a former defensive lineman, a former tackle, and I really thought it was a football perspective. He knows when his defense is doing something, how a quarterback should react to it, and how that causes problems for a defense. So I when he said this, I thought he was speaking from a place where he's really informed. Here's Taron Armstead.
Caleb's process, playing that quarterback position, has to improve fast and pretty fast, in my opinion. On a consistent basis, Caleb was not able to recognize where he was in danger. He wasn't feeling pressure. He wasn't feeling blitzes. He wasn't seeing blitzes and threats pre-snap. Anthony Weaver, the Dolphins defensive coordinator, was able to send guys from all different spots on the field, and, man, a lot of those got home. A lot of those would have been sacks.
It's Taron Armstead, not defense. I said defensive, former offensive tackle. So that's if you're a Bears fan, I can see where that would stress you out a little bit. I wouldn't blame you for that.
Agreed.
Other stuff we talked about in this show: the Milwaukee Brewers, 10 straight wins. They pummeled the Pirates 7-1. 30 games over 500, 74 wins, 6.5 games up on the Cubs in the NL Central. PK, do you believe teams can get too hot too early? It's mid-August and they're on fire. And they have been since Memorial Day, basically. Can they sustain this? Or do you look at them and think, this is great, but you peak too early?
Well, you play to win. I mean, you can't let's lose so we don't peak too early. You can't do that. But if another team gets really hot, and you go back 2 years, the Diamondbacks got hot at the most appropriate time, in the most important time. Well, that doesn't necessarily – and they beat the Brewers, if I remember, along the way. That doesn't mean the other team necessarily peaked. It's the other team. The team that won was better. So you do what you can, and they made some trades. I know they picked up Shelby Miller to be work him into the bullpen and see what he's got there. And so you've got some time there. You just play, and whatever happens, happens. And there's always that thing. You hear that all the time. Well, if a team gets a bye and the other team plays and then wins, well, is the team that had the bye, are they rusty? I mean, literally every sport deals with that issue.
Yep. And to your point, there are the teams that are hot. The Boston Red Sox are 22-10 over a little more than a month. I mean, All-Star breaks in there, so that's probably 5, maybe 6 weeks. That's an awesome stretch right there. So there are multiple teams that get it rolling at any one time.
Right, and it seems like it happens in this sport. For whatever reason, you go into a slump and you're having a hard time, and you go 1 for 25. And then 2 weeks later, man, it's the proverbial beach ball coming in at you.
Yeah. Nobody colder than the New York teams right now. Those two are struggling. That is not going well.
Yeah, well, when I was back in New York, the Mets were riding high. And now...
Yeah. Now they've lost 11 to 12.
I know, yeah. Like, what? But the season is so freaking long.
Yep.
That you got to find a way to get in.
Yeah. They got 6 weeks to get hot and go. Shohei hit home run number 42, and he and his agent are being sued by a Hawaii real estate investor and broker who claimed the agent got them fired from a luxury housing development on the Big Island. So now he's in a $240 million real estate lawsuit.
Yeah, because I was looking at buying some property there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
Of course, I wouldn't have anywhere near the cash to do it, but I was still looking.
Just still looking at it.
Yeah.
All right, DJ and PK, your feedback's coming up next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Matty Ice. Being a Bears fan is not an easy task. I bought into the Super Bowl shuffle as a kid, and it's been nothing but misery since. He just sent that in after listening to us talk about Caleb Williams. Well, you got a Super Bowl as a kid, though, so that's good.
Yeah?
Got to the mountaintop.
But you want one again.
Absolutely. How many teams get that? A handful of them.
A few?
You know, to win in different eras. Denver did it.
Different eras you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a reasonable expectation. Pittsburgh, Cowboys.
Yep. Yeah, they've won in different eras. Now, Cowboy fans would like to win in the third era, but they won with Landry and with Jimmy Johnson, so that's different eras.
Oh, distinct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, meanwhile, the Bears have won, and Bears fan complains about it, and Lions fan in the same division is sitting over there thinking, how about us, one time? And Viking fan, how about us, one time? Packers have done it in different eras.
Yes, they have. Yeah. And when you think about it, though, football professionally is like it's still in its infancy practically.
60 years of Super Bowls, roughly?
Yeah, that's not a long time. So
it's not baseball with 100 and whatever.
Right. Exactly.
But it's, I mean, the Super Bowl's newer than the NBA.
So I think you'll have an opportunity for, like, say, the Eagles to do it. Did Washington do it? Would you put Washington on there?
You know, it was all Joe Gibbs, but he won with 3 different quarterbacks. But I would think it's one era because it's the Joe Gibbs era to me.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I asked.
Right. Debatable because they did do it with different QBs.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is 2 of those 3 titles were in the years where they didn't play a full season. You know, they played a 9-game season instead of 16. And then the other one, I think they played like 13 or 14 games, but 3 of them they played with the replacement players. So, and they counted those games. I mean, what was that? But they went to expanded playoffs to give everybody a shot, and then Washington won in the playoffs. So, and they did win once with a full 16-game season. I think the full season they won was the one Jason Buck, the former Cougar, was on.
Yeah.
So there are places, Atlanta's still waiting for one. There are places still waiting for one. But the Dolphins are like the Bears. They had a great run, but then what? They're waiting for another era, waiting for it to happen.
Did KC get one in those early days or no?
They did. They won the 4th one with Len Dawson and Otis Taylor.
Right, I thought so.
The last AFL NFL game. Yeah.
So clearly you would put them there.
Yep. They've now had another era, and they are having an era.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, and if you have the Patriots run, I don't know that you need another era. Patriots fans might say with the long break in between, it felt like 2 eras, but you still had the coach and the quarterback. But they won about a decade-ish without winning, and then won 3 more.
Well, they had different undersized white receivers.
That's true.
Something like that, about 10 of them.
Yeah. Who was the best? Was it Edelman?
I'd have to go look at all the numbers, but that probably.
Yeah. After a lousy season, the Utes almost made the preseason top 25. Is that a sign of great respect for the program? And DeVerl says, yes, the media appears to believe last season was a fluke with injuries.
Well, yeah, duh.
Right.
I've been saying that all along. They're not back because they never left.
They've had injuries.
Yeah.
The last, 6 years, they've had 3 years they've had the healthy quarterback, and 3 years they have not. And the 3 years they had the healthy quarterback, they played in the title game every year. And the 3 years they did not have a healthy quarterback, they went a combined 16-14.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Right.
And it really isn't that different with BYU. Just look at the last 2 years. 5-7 when they had an injured quarterback, tied for the regular season conference title when they had a healthy quarterback.
Yeah, that speaks
looks
volumes,
a lot like
man.
It looks a lot like what the Utes do. But that makes sense to me because you could trace all the coaches at both places back to Kyle and then back to Fred Whittingham Sr. So they build defenses very similarly. They get similar levels of success, but do they have a healthy quarterback? And there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you can withstand some injuries at other positions, but in this day and age, trying to withstand a quarterback injury is awfully tough.
Yeah. DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are all done. Jake and Ben are coming up next. Stay with us right here on The Zone.